Hey, you guys, thanks for listening in to this episode of Tips with T. On today, I have Mr. Joel with us. How are you doing, Mr. Joel?
I'm doing well, T. Thank you.
Well, it's so good to have you on the show. So tell us more about yourself and what you do.
Thank you. So I am, I wear a lot of different hats. This is my 14th year as a high school teacher, teaching history and Bible. That's been a lot of fun. I also spend a lot of time working with different groups on focusing on leadership. I've worked with colleges and conferences and corporate groups and church leadership groups and that sort of thing. I am an author, and I also work as a blended family coach, helping people who are divorced or remarried with kids and figure out how to try to live that life with a little bit less conflict, a little bit more cooperation. So I do all of those things.
Well, awesome. That's good to hear. So you did mention that you was an author. I know that you write books, and you wrote quite a few on leadership. So why do you feel that leadership is so important?
I believe that leadership is at the foundation of everything we do. In the books that I've written, I said a couple things that I'll repeat here. One of them is that every person is a leader, whether they choose to be or not, and that every job you have is either a leadership position or it's training for a future leadership position. So I've worked a gajillion different jobs as an adult. Before I became a teacher, I worked as growing up. I worked as a lifeguard and a bag boy and a yard maintenance person and a pizza delivery guy and a warehouse manager and all sorts of different things. And from each of those jobs, whether they were specifically what we'd call a leadership or management position or not, most of those were not. But from each of those, I've learned different lessons, whether it's about how to treat other people or whether it's about how to be a good employee or a good follower. And so I believe that leadership is at the core of everything that we do. So whether you're talking about the way that you lead your family or the way that you lead your organization, or for me, the way that I've led sports teams, because I've been a soccer coach for a lot of years as well, how you approach leadership shapes your decision making, and how you make decisions shapes the people that are following you, for good or for bad. And I've had a lot of leadership positions. I've been studying it since I was in college. I graduated back in 2004, so I've been doing this for a long time. The commonalities of leadership are pretty widespread. There are certain things that lots of good leaders do that I believe we can learn from. And so again, I think that leadership is important because whether we consciously think about it or not, we are all leading someone. And so I think it's important that we think about those things and we try to lead in a way that is purposeful instead of accidental. And again, I say that as a person who has made plenty of mistakes in the past and maybe not done as well leading as I should have. And so I'm trying to learn from those mistakes and share those mistakes with others so that hopefully they can avoid making them and be better off.
Leadership plays a major role in whatever type of role in life that we do. And a lot of people don't really get it or grasp it. But why are goals goal setting is so important within leadership? Like, why does that matter?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it matters for a couple of reasons. One, because the goals that you set shape the kind of leader that you will be. And the goals that you set also reveal your priorities as a leader. So, for example, on my soccer teams that I've coached, I've been teaching at a small Christian high school for years. And the soccer teams that I've coached, if our only goal is to win a certain amount of games or to try to win a conference or area title or to try to win a state championship or whatever, those aren't bad. But as a teacher and a coach of high school kids, I also believe that my job should be to teach them how to be better people, not just how to be better soccer players. So what goals we set reveals what our priorities are. Same thing for my children. If I want my children to be all A students, that's a different goal than saying I want my children to be responsible and respectful. Because you can be responsible and respectful and still not be an all A student.
Right.
Or you can be an all A student and you can just be a turd. Right? Because I've taught some of those kids. And so, again, the goals that we have reveal our priorities. Honestly, I don't care if my kids are all A students. They're capable of it, so I want them to be. But at the same time, that's not my ultimate goal. Ultimately, I want my kids to learn how to be responsible, respectful human beings. And if they get all A's while they're doing that, so much the better, right? So that's the idea behind goal setting in terms of how it reveals our priorities. It's also important because goal setting shapes our decision making in terms of how we relate to our followers. To
Mm-hmm.
take the soccer player example again, if my main goal is just to win games, then some of what I teach them might not actually be good things to teach them, because there are plenty of ways to cheat on a soccer field that you can get away with. Anybody that plays sports knows there's that gray area where
Mm-hmm.
you can, it's kind of cheating, but it's kind of okay. Well, if if I believe my job is to make these students into better people, these players into better people, then I'm not going to teach them how to exploit that gray area. What I'm going to teach them is how to play the game properly, whether we win or lose. So in a lot of the material I've sent out to my soccer players for years, I told them, if we have to choose between losing fairly or cheating to win, we will lose fairly every single time, because it's more important in the long run that you learn how to be honest and have integrity.
Mm-hmm.
That's way more important than winning any soccer game at the high school level or at any level, right? So setting goals not only shapes or reveals our priorities, it also shapes our decision making. Because again, if your goal for your business is to hit a certain dollar amount, that's not a bad goal.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's your only goal,
Mm-hmm.
then what happens if you're not hitting that dollar amount? Do you start cutting corners? Do you
Mm-hmm.
start cheating your clients a little bit? Do you
Mm-hmm.
start, you start skimming off the top to try to make your number or cook the books so your numbers look better?
Mm-hmm.
Or is your goal to simply serve your clients as well as you can?
Yeah.
Right? Because those are different goals. Now, it's not a bad thing to have a dollar mark that you want to hit.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's your ultimate aim, then you are at more of a risk of becoming an unethical business person than if your goal is to just serve the customers well. And if you really look at some of the most successful businesses in the world, you know what they have in common? Great customer service.
Right.
Because if you're good at taking care of your customers, you're also more likely to be profitable,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so for your listeners, I don't know if you have either. I just came across him about a year or two ago, but he's been great. Have you read any books by Bob Berg?
No, I
All
have.
right, so I strongly recommend him. He and John David Mann have written a series of books called the Go Giver series, as opposed to a Go Getter, right? And they're basically business novels. They're novels that teach business principles. And there's the Go Giver and the Go Giver Leader and the Go Giver Influencer, and I think there's a couple more. But they're great, because this is a lot of what they talk about, is how, as business people, our priorities shouldn't be to make X amount of dollars. Our priorities should be, how can I best meet the needs of my customer? Because if I do that, if I take care of my clients, my customers, I'm more likely to be successful anyway.
Right.
Right? A
And
lot of
that's,
that has to do with your goal setting.
yeah, and this also has a lot to do with goal setting. And then like also, like I feel like when it comes to businesses, part of your goal should be is trying to develop some type of relationship with your client, so you can
Absolutely.
identify their needs as well, because one client might not
Yep.
need something that another client might need. So how can you
Yep.
address their needs um, to help them to succeed and reach their goals that they might have, whether it's a financial goal, whether it's their credit score, things like
Yep.
that. So really trying to learn to identify that, and by me learning how to do that, I'm able to attract more clients, because then those clients will refer you to other clients,
Mm-hmm.
so they can come to
Yep.
you to get stuff done. So
Yep. Yeah.
yeah.
I 100% agree. That's one of the other things that I put in my leadership book that you referenced earlier. There's a phrase in there that I use in almost every business presentation that I give, or every leadership presentation I give, and it talks exactly about what you were saying really well about building good relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's the phrase. Here's what I believe: if you take care of relationships, the results will take care of themselves.
Right.
Right. And again, I say that as a person who has had broken relationships. There have been relationships where I've done things that I shouldn't have, whether that's as a parent or as a spouse or as a business person or whatever. And I've seen the results of not having good relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had to learn some really hard lessons about that. But the opposite is also true. If you take care of good relationships, if you take care of relationships well,
Mm-hmm.
the results will take care of themselves for a lot of the reasons you just mentioned. Because if you do a good job by your client, that client is more likely to refer you to people, and they're more likely to come back to you if they have another issue in the future. And that stems from having a great relationship. And you also said it really well when you said it's about meeting your client's needs, because different clients have different needs. Again, from the high school teacher perspective, different students have different needs. What works really well with one kid may not work really well with other kids in the class. And so how do I know that? Well, I only know that if I get to know my students, if I have a good relationship with my students. And once I've gotten to know them, now I can better understand, okay, this kid over here, they need some encouragement because they're having a rough time. This kid over here, he needs a swift kick in the pants. That's what's going to motivate him right now. And you can't treat every student the same, just like you can't treat every client the same. So I love that you brought that up about relationships, because it really is a key part of moving our businesses forward, understanding what our clients need and meeting those needs in a way that is specific to them. That's a huge part of it. And like you said, you can only do that by building good relationships with them.
Right. So, why should leaders be also learners? I know you have mentioned that in your book, which, I can get, but some people, we have some people that think that they know it all, that they have all
Yes.
the information. So
Yep.
why do you feel as leaders that we should also be learners?
Well, I'll fully admit that I'm a little biased because I'm a high school teacher, and I teach the class that most kids say is their least favorite. That is before they come to my classroom, because nobody cares about high school history. I believe they should, but most people don't. It's not on the SATs to get into college. It's not on your end of year, test for a lot of places. Here's the thing. Learning history isn't about getting a job or passing a test. Learning history is about becoming a better human being by learning about how we are and why we are the way we are, right? Well, the same thing is true in leadership. If you're going to be a good leader, the worst thing you can do is assume that you already know everything that you think you need to know, because you don't. Ultimately, a couple things are true. I remember, this is the first one. Somebody always knows more, right? You remember the original Karate Kid movie? I don't know if you're old enough to remember that. Not the one with Will Smith's kid, but the old school one from the 1980s, old one, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's a great line in that movie where the character Daniel is talking with Mr. Miyagi about learning different karate things, and Mr. Miyagi looks at him and he says, "Here's the thing: someone always knows more." There's always somebody that knows more than you do, which means there's always more to learn. Again, I've been teaching high school for 14 years. I've been coaching soccer for 18 years. There are still so many things I don't know about either of those tasks. And so if I want to get better at them, I need to continue to learn. Same thing about being in business. The best business leaders, no matter how long they've been in the business, are continuing to learn, because the business landscape is changing, right? The business landscape right now is very different than it was 6 weeks ago. And the business landscape 6 weeks ago was very different than it was 5 or 10 years ago. And because those things are constantly changing, we need to be aware of those changes, which means we need to continually be learning how to move forward, right? Same thing as a parent. Just when I think I've got parenting down, which has never happened, by the way. I have two daughters that are both teenagers. I don't know. I don't know how to be a teenage girl. I've never been one. What I do know is that just when I think I understand them, they get a year older and they're different, right? Because I thought I had a pretty good handle on my kids when they were 8 and 10, and now I turn around and they are 13 and almost 16. Well, those are very different creatures than they were 6 months ago, a year ago, 5 years ago. So I wrote a blog post about this years ago, and it's how I first connected with Bob Berg, because he was kind enough to read it and comment on it. The blog post was called "The Illusion of Enlightenment: The Danger of Thinking We Know More Than We Do." See, the thing is, you and I live in a very digital world. We have Google and Wikipedia and social media, and so everybody thinks they're experts in everything.
Right.
And we're not.
We're not.
And until we're willing to admit that, we aren't going to be willing to admit that other people might have a different viewpoint that is just as valid and correct as our own. And that's dangerous. Because so my older daughter right now is 15. She's learning how to drive. So we go out and we go driving down the road, and I'm explaining to her some of the traffic laws. She passed her permit test, but learning from a book is not the same thing as learning in a car.
Yeah.
Right. And so she knows in her head what the traffic laws are, and she knows in her head how to operate a car, but it's not the same thing as doing it. And so sometimes as she's driving, I have to say, oh, remember, that's a stop sign. Oh, remember, that's a red light. You can turn right, but you have to stop first. Oh, yeah, that's right. I remember that, right? Because she's continuing to learn and be reminded of things that she already learned, or to learn new things like, okay, yes, you can turn right at red here, right? It's a red light. You can turn right, but you also have to look. See, across the road there, they have a turn signal. So if you turn right on red, you may be cutting someone off and causing an accident. Right. Oh, I didn't know that. That's right. That's just because you haven't done it before, but thank you for listening, right? So that's the kind of thing. In business, we always need to be learning more. In leadership, we always need to be learning more, because no matter how much you think you know, one, somebody else knows more than you do. And two, things are changing. So tomorrow may be different than today. And a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, the people that you are leading are different people, or you have different goals. And so you have to constantly be learning how to adjust to those different situations. So it is imperative, if you're going to be a leader, that you also are a willing learner.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you're not going to be successful for very long, because whatever you're doing, whether it's a game or teaching or a business, it's going to pass you by because you refuse to move along with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, I'm still to this day learning different things, new tricks. That's why I always try to tell people, um, put people in your circle that's where you're trying to be,
Mm-hmm.
because they have more information and knowledge than you do, and they can always give you new information, new information and knowledge that you never known
Mm-hmm.
before. You're like, oh, I didn't know that. You just taught me something new. You always want to be around people that can teach you something new. If they're not teaching you anything new, you can't learn from them, then you might want to reevaluate your circle. I mean, because you don't, because
Yep.
you always want to, it's always room for growth.
Yeah,
Always
I
room for growth.
100% agree with you. 100% agree. It's a great thing that you're able to do that. Everybody should have some kind of a business mentor or a business
Mm-hmm.
coach. Just like, again, I've been teaching at the same high school for 7 years. Whenever we hire new teachers, we match the new teacher up with a mentor teacher,
Mm-hmm.
especially if the new teacher is pretty young, so that you can teach them not just how this school works, but so that you can be a resource to answer questions about teaching in general.
Right.
Because it's like anything else. You may, when you graduate with a degree, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that you're an expert at that job yet.
Right.
it,
Right.
it is not. We'd like to think that it does, but again, learning it in a classroom is not the same thing as doing it in the real world. And
It's not.
and it doesn't matter if it's teaching or finance or statistics or
Mm-hmm.
business or whatever. And so it's important, just like you said, it's important to have a circle of people that are going to challenge you and help you to grow,
Mm-hmm.
because they know more than you do, because they have more experience than you do. Yeah, I think you're 100% right about that.
Right. So I think you kind of already answered the question already, but how are you using your leadership skills to transform your students to be leaders in the future?
One of the big things that I really try to teach my students is that the purpose of education has nothing to do with getting good grades or a scholarship or a good job. I firmly believe that. Now, those are not bad goals. And as a person who got pretty good grades and scholarships and got a job that I loved, I'm not saying that they're bad things to try to pursue, but that's not the point of education. The point of education is to help make you into a better human being, right? It's to help make you into a more well-rounded, more empathetic, more aware human being. And that's a part of leadership, because again, if a leader is not empathetic to the needs and wants and desires of their followers, they're not going to be a very good leader for very long. Certainly not in the 21st century. And so one thing I try to impress upon my students is, I want you to get good grades, but more importantly, I want you to become a better person.
Right.
When you leave my classroom, if you are not any better of a person than you were when you came into my classroom, then I have failed. I don't care what your grade is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you fail my class, but you tried really hard and you just weren't able to meet the standards required, no hard feelings, right? Because I don't care what your grade is, but did you become a better person? Did you learn life lessons, right? Were you able to realize the limitations of your own knowledge and then start expanding on those?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if you do those things, we had a successful year together. If you came in here and you did no work, but you feel like you did a good job, I didn't do my job, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you came in and you got all A's, but you didn't actually learn anything about how to be a better person, then I have failed,
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't teach you what I should have.
Mm-hmm.
So a large part of this is teaching my students that leadership is all about trying to serve other people, right? Because that's, to me, ultimately, that's what leadership is. Leadership is the art of positively influencing other people to help them become better versions of themselves. That's what I'm all about. I want to help the people that I'm working with. I want to help them become better. Every day you come into my classroom, I want to help you become a better person. Every day you come to soccer practice, every person I work with in a blended family, every audience I speak to from a leadership stage, whatever it is, I want to help you become better. Because if I do that, then our entire little pocket of the world
Mm-hmm.
becomes better, whether that's just inside of our home or in the little tiny Alabama town where I live
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. But if we are all getting a little bit better every day, then we're going to make the world a much better place.
Awesome. Awesome. That's very great and awesome what you're doing, instilling that in your children, the kids that you teach. I try to do the same as well whenever I'm out in the community, because I haven't been able to mentor the kids now due to us being
Mm-hmm.
a stay-at-home order. But when I do go out and mentor them, I try to instill in them good qualities, tell them, little aspects about my life and how things were where we was growing up, because like the times and change was it's different, but try to teach them what core values to at least hold on to, how to be good, good leadership, the attitude, your attitude and how you treat people goes a long way. So
Mm.
just instilling those little things into the kids that I teach. And with you with leadership, I think is very, very awesome. And hopefully we have more people doing that today in this crazy
Yeah,
world.
yeah, absolutely.
So tell our listeners how they can contact you and how they can get your book if they would like to purchase it. And I'm going to share the social handles.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for doing that. Definitely find me on social media. It's just under my name, Joel W. Hawbaker. I'm on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. Find me at any of those places. I've got 3 different websites. My speaker website is joelwhawbaker.com. Reallifeleading.com is all about, it's a combination of leadership and blended family information. And then stepdadding.com is a lot of blended family information as well. You can email me at any of those places or fill out the contact Joel form. But I would love to speak with any of your listeners that have any questions, or if they just want to chat about leadership or history or sports or whatever, please have them reach out to me. I would love to. I'd love to connect with your audience. And the other thing is you can find my books on Amazon. You can find them both as ebooks and one of them as a paperback. But for any of your listeners who are interested, if they will reach out to me, I will send them a free PDF copy of it. I'll send them an ebook version of it free. That way they don't have to pay for it. Because the thing is, my goal with my book was not ever to make money. My goal was to get that leadership information out to people who want it. So if anybody in your audience wants to just email me, I'll be glad to send them an e-copy of both of my leadership books without charging them for it. I'd love for them to have it.
Well, that's awesome. And you guys, if you would like to get in contact with me, my number is 910-317-0396. You can send me an email at contact@mjfinancial.biz. You can schedule a consultation on my website, www.mjfinancial.biz. And you can also find this episode, you guys, on Anchor to go back, listen to the replay. And then this video will also be on YouTube. So if you want to go back and rewatch this video, it's on YouTube as well. So thank you once again, Mr. Joe, for being on the show today. I very appreciate you. Thank you for sharing your leadership tips with us. I hope our listeners have enjoyed it. And I hope you will come back again on the show sometime.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I'm glad we're able to get it scheduled and worked out. And it's really great to talk with you. And I look forward to sharing our conversation with others as well. I would love to come back whenever it works for you. Thank you.
All right. Well, all right, you guys. We will see you on the next episode of Tips with T.